Hi guys, welcome to Recaps Unfold. Today, we will be recapping an interesting action thriller. It begins with the President of the United States returning back to the White House in his private helicopter at dawn. The President, James Sawyer, arrives safely and is accompanied by Deputy Special Agent Carol Finnerty. Meanwhile, outside a house in D.C., a United States Capitol Police named John Cale is waiting for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Eli Raffleson, to come out. They head to work, where John sees his acquaintance, Jenna, and asks about the favor to get an interview with the Deputy Special Agent. After confirming that he's getting an interview in the White House, John asks another favor to get one more White House pass for his daughter, Emily, who really loves American political history. John goes to Emily's house to pick her up. John and Emily's mother are divorced, and he is trying to rebuild his relationship with Emily in spite of him forgetting about dates that were important to her, which made her upset. He successfully bribes Emily with the White House pass and says that they're going there because he has an interview to become the President's Secret Service staff. She is excited. Meanwhile, the White House security staff are busy with the morning briefing. The President has made a speech deciding to pull back the American military troops in the Middle East and is proposing a controversial peace treaty. This causes the threats aimed at him to increase significantly, as reported by Carol. Then, she and the others then congratulate the head of the presidential security detail, Martin Walker, who is retiring that week. The president also congratulates Martin on his retirement and gets in a call with Eli to discuss how the peace treaty is going to make the military-industrial complex lose a lot of money. Eli is afraid that they'll irritate a lot of important people, but the president isn't worried. After John and Emily arrive at the White House, it turns out that Carol, who is conducting his interview, is a college acquaintance of his. After reading his file and stating some prejudiced opinions that he isn't qualified to be a part of the Secret Service, he is let go from the interview. He and Emily then decide to join a tour of the White House, at Emily's request. She excitedly points out the history of the place. Meanwhile, John sees a group of sketchy janitors doing something in the president's private theater room. It turns out that they're a group of terrorists that are setting up a bomb to blow up the building. To Emily's delight, the president comes to greet the tour group when she asks him a question, and she is given a shout-out for her YouTube channel. Not long after that, one of the disguised terrorists leaves a bomb at the center of the United States Capitol and blows it up, alerting Carol, who had just left the Capitol. They escort Eli, who is uninjured, to the command center below the Pentagon and is followed by Carol. They change all the nuclear codes into new ones, which only Eli knows. Meanwhile, Vice President Alvin Hammond is brought aboard the Air Force One. In the White House, Martin is planning to escort the president to the Presidential Emergency Operating Center under the building. He also orders to keep the tour party secure in the Blue Room. John is frantically trying to get out to get Emily, who had gone to the bathroom earlier. She, unfortunately, encounters a group of the terrorists, which is led by a man named Emil Stens, as they kill the guards and staff in the White House. The terrorist group welcomes a hacker into their team named Skip Tyler, who immediately gets to work. Meanwhile, Emily tries to hide while recording the terrorists using her phone camera. As the situation gets dire, Martin starts to escort the president towards the emergency operating center with the others. However, once the team gains access to the room, Martin starts to kill everyone there but the president, revealing himself to be the leader of the terrorist attack. Some of the terrorists enter the Blue Room and decide to take them hostage. John is still worried about Emily, so he manages to run away and take one of the terrorists' guns and walkie-talkies after being unable to locate Emily. He hears Martin calling for Emil and his men to come to the emergency operating center. John decides to head there first and starts shooting at Martin, managing to escape with the president. The terrorists are pissed at John, especially Emil, because John has killed his best friend back there. Martin states that although Skip has easily hacked into the White House's security system, they still need the president alive to open the biometrics lock for the nuclear briefcase. While John and the president hide above the elevator, the president explains why he thinks Martin is betraying him. It turns out that Martin's son, who was a Marine, was sent to do a covert mission by the president but got killed in action. The president thinks that Martin is trying to get revenge for his son. The president suggests that John and him should go to the residence because he keeps a satellite phone there. So, they start climbing up the elevator shaft and narrowly escape an elevator that's going up by shoving a shoe into the gears. Near the Blue Room, Emily is sneaking outside trying to get more footage, but she's caught by one of the terrorists named Killick. She is taken to the Blue Room as a hostage, but she has uploaded the videos that she took to her YouTube channel. Meanwhile, Martin has taken a few officials hostage and calls the Pentagon base to demand $400 million from the Federal Reserve as ransom. He gives them 2 hours for it, or else he'll shoot the president in one of the lawns. Carol is shocked that Martin, who she's close to, can do something like this. They then get into a conference call with the vice president, who suggests that they send some troops to the White House to save the president. When Carol says that it's a difficult task due to some laws, the vice president suggests invoking the 25th Amendment to replace the president in a time of crisis. Outside of the White House, crowds and media gather to report the incident on a real-time basis alongside some soldiers that they managed to post outside the gates. Still in the elevator shaft, the president mentions that Martin is probably getting help and funding from the military complex because if the president stays in power, they'll lose potential profits over his new policy. The elevator beneath them starts to move downwards again, and the two use the chance to escape to the second floor. They head to the White House residence and find the satellite phone. While the president changes into his sneakers, John calls Jenna, who is on Air Force One with Vice President Alvin. Initially, she doesn't believe that John is the president, but the president takes over the call and asks to be connected to any command center they have left. Jenna puts the two on a call with the vice president and the Pentagon command center. They instruct John to get the president out of the White House through the secret underground tunnel in the basement. But a couple of terrorists hear them speaking on the call, and they narrowly escape after the president shoots the remaining terrorist. Then, Carol tells John to watch the news, which features his daughter's video, name, and picture as her video of the terrorist has gone viral. While the Pentagon uses Emily's video to run a facial recognition scan on the bad guys, Emil has also seen the news, which was left on by John before he and the president head to the basement. This results in Emil barging into the Blue Room and slapping Emily before taking away her camera and phone. Meanwhile, the Pentagon manages to figure out that all of the terrorists involved in the attack were either part of various government agencies or radical political groups. In the basement, John and the president find out that the tunnel's entrance has been rigged with explosives, so instead they head to the garage to get away from the pursuing terrorists in the presidential limousine. The terrorists follow them using limousines with heavy artillery, shooting endlessly at the presidential car. A torpedo blast flings the limo into the pool, and when John swims to the surface, he sees Emily being held at gunpoint by Killick. The terrorists continue to shoot at the two men, resulting in a huge explosion as they were shooting on a flammable fuel stock. The blast causes everyone to presume the president to be dead, so Vice President Alvin gets sworn in to become the president aboard Air Force One. It turns out that both President Sawyer and John are still alive and have escaped through an underground tunnel. However, they learn that Alvin has ordered some helicopters to shoot at the terrorists from above. The two split ways, and John tries to stop the terrorists who have surface-to-air missiles, but they manage to shoot down the helicopters. While Carol has asked someone to look into how Martin managed to contact the other terrorists, John is having a fight with Emil that results in Emil figuring out that Emily is John's daughter and taking her to Martin in the Oval Office. In the control room, Skip has successfully gained access to the country's missile launchers and sends one towards Air Force One, killing everyone on board. With Alvin dead, Eli, being the speaker, then was now sworn in to become the president. He decides to bomb the whole White House complex to prevent the terrorists from misusing another missile. And Carol calls John to inform him that he has 8 minutes to get the president and everyone else out of the building. In the Oval Office, Emil and Martin have Emily hostage at gunpoint. Martin uses the loudspeaker to demand that John brings President Sawyer to him or else they'll shoot Emily. Against John's judgment, President Sawyer decides to surrender himself to save Emily. Martin reveals to Sawyer that his motive for the attack is to strengthen the image of American military power. He thinks that Sawyer is too weak as a president and wants to regain international respect for American troops as well as avenge his son's death. He plans to launch a nuclear missile at Iran and forces Sawyer to open the biometrics lock on the nuclear launch briefcase. Of course, Sawyer refuses, even with Emily's life on the line. Just as Martin is about to shoot her, the fire alarm and sprinklers turn on because John is setting the residence on fire. In the chaos, Killick finds John and fights him, almost winning until the tour guide bashes Killick's head with a clock. John instructs the guide to lead the hostages out before the airstrike, then heads towards the Oval Office to save Emily and Sawyer. On the way, he is met by Emil, who's determined to kill him. But John is the one who ends up killing Emil by strapping some grenades on his neck. Meanwhile, in the basement, Skip tries to escape through the rigged tunnel, but gets blown up when it malfunctions. In the Oval Office, Sawyer attacks Martin when he's distracted, but he's overpowered. Martin then opens the briefcase using Sawyer's handprints before shooting him. Somehow, Martin knows the updated launch codes and puts the target on various cities in Iran. Fortunately, John crashes into the office with an SUV and kills Martin using a machine gun before he can confirm the nuclear launch. The threat of an airstrike is still looming, so John tells Emily to run away as fast as she can. Instead, she decides to grab the presidential flag and wave it on the front lawn, causing the airstrike team to abort the mission as there are too many civilians around. While everyone in the Pentagon celebrates, Eli is seen being solemn and quiet, which is noticed by Carol. In the White House, Sawyer is actually still alive because the bullet was stopped by his pocket watch. John then receives a call from Carol saying that it's not over, as she thinks that the terrorists weren't recruited by Martin, but by someone else in the administration who knows the launch codes. They realize that Eli is behind it all along too, wanting to be president and having many friends from the military industry. When Carol lands at the White House with Eli, John confronts him while pretending that Sawyer is dead. Still thinking he is the president, Eli orders the American troops to be sent back to the Middle East to stabilize the area. John then reveals that Eli is behind the attack with Martin by using the pager that the two men used to communicate, with Eli's number connected to it. Sawyer then reveals himself to be alive and arrests Eli for his crimes and retakes the role of President of the United States. He then hires John to be his special agent bodyguard and takes Emily on a helicopter ride to the hospital. The movie ends with President Sawyer receiving news that due to the day's event, Iran, Russia, China, and other countries have agreed to sign his peace treaty out of a need for peace. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified about our future videos. Bye-bye.